EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
So, Jeff, you know how we make fun of car commercials and razor blade commercials and all this shit?
Yeah, with the flyovers and American flags. And
Yeah. But have you ever seen a commercial that made you go out and buy something?
You know, that's a good question. Probably the ones I can think of, not that I can remember what the products were, but the 1-800 numbers late at night, I probably bought, 50 things off of those. Do you remember, like, as a kid, if you ever saw a commercial that made you want something?
Not for me as a kid, but when my daughter was young, we had to get her a Tickle Me Elmo because she watched Sesame Street.
Yeah. Well, and since you bring it up, little girls have always wanted a Barbie doll.
Yeah.
So some of that stuff was marketed. But if you think about how different marketing is now, they're just the internet. I mean, with social media, influencers, and algorithms and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're directly marketing to people.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the ad industry and marketing good and bad things to children. And we're also going to talk about some of the most dangerous toys and the most dangerous toy ever made. Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, Mad Men, Candy to Cancer. So no brand or company would ever try to sell you anything from a stick of gum to a car without advertising and marketing. But way before Don Draper graced the small screen smoking, drinking, and having sex with women from Madison Avenue to California, a man named Volney B. Palmer founded the first advertising agency as we know it in 1841 in Philadelphia.
And it was considered an agency because, for example, up until then, if a manufacturer of a product, let's say, wanted to advertise something, they'd just contact a newspaper and tell them what the advertising was.
Right.
But Palmer was the first middleman, so he'd facilitate that connection between the advertisers and the newspapers or the manufacturers, and so that made him a broker for the advertising space. But he didn't just sell space; he offered what he called a system of advertising. So he was the first to advise the manufacturer on how to create the ad, where it should run, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that seems pretty obvious by today's standards, but that's where it came from, and it laid the foundation for the modern advertising agency model. By the 1880s and the 90s, advertising had shifted towards this kind of full service agency. N.W. Ayer and Sons was founded in Philadelphia in 1869, and in 1877, they became successful enough to buy out the company we just mentioned who started it all, the first Mad Men, Volney Palmer Agency. In 1892, artists and writers began working in what they called creative teams, and eventually Ayer came up with some of the most recognizable slogans in advertising history.
It's really incredible that all the way back in 1921, they came up with "I'd walk a mile for a camel" for the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. And I don't know if that's still, now that cigarette advertising has been curtailed, but growing up, everybody knew that.
Yeah.
And it's almost unbelievable to think that they were creating lines going back as far as 115 years that are still in use today and ones that everybody knows. I think one of the most amazing ones is the Morton Salt packaging with the everybody knows the little girl with the umbrella, and the tagline is "When it rains, it pours." They came up with that in 1912.
And they still use it.
Yeah. And De Beers, I think everyone knows the De Beers diamond one from 1947, "A Diamond is Forever." And Ayer, the actual Ayer company, was still doing it in 1979 when they did the reach out and touch someone thing for AT&T.
America runs on Bolivar time.
That was really cool that we were able to find that. It was the first TV commercial, and it was aired before the start of the Brooklyn Dodgers Philadelphia Philly baseball game in 1941 on NBC. It had an image of a clock superimposed over the map of the U.S. with the caption, "America runs on Boulevard time." It was only 10 seconds.
That's so
I think
cool.
they paid like $4 for it or something. That's crazy.
And then, all the TV advertising led to that golden era that we all loved, the Madison Avenue era and the Mad Men. Even though the world's first TV ad was actually broadcast way back in 41, up until the 50s, TV was still a relatively small market. But then by the late 50s, it became more common, and that's when TV advertising as we know it started. And then, of course, it just blew up in the 60s, and ad agencies had to start getting really creative and innovative to compete.
Yeah, we're not going to focus too much on the way women were depicted in these ads in the 50s and 60s. But let's just say they were mostly subservient property whose function was to serve men food and sex, and they'd better look good doing it, or else.
Wait, what was bad about that?
I know. We're going to get yelled
that's-
at.
We don't mean it.
No. And to keep up with the women's movement as it gained traction, ad agencies began to empower them in advertisement. They did this mainly with women serving men food and sex and looking good doing it, but now they wanted to.
The Mad Men TV show itself was a little cartoony and melodramatic. That's a compliment. But it really did give us some insight into a lot of the behavior and culture that developed in its heyday.
Never criticize your own product was the marketing 101 of the ad world. And then came Volkswagen.
So this year, just about everyone will be telling you about this great new idea, to think small. It is a great idea. We at Volkswagen have been working on it for 21 years.
In 1960, they changed the ad world with a little irony and sense of humor with their Think Small and their lemon ads. After that, poking fun at your own product became a thing in the 60s.
Yeah, they actually made reference to that specific ad in Mad Men. You remember that with the Volkswagen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also, among others, Avis had a great campaign that was focused on being number 2 to Hertz. It was, we try harder.
Right.
And Canada Dry had a tagline, sure, we could make it cheaper.
Yeah.
And not only were they starting to be more image-based, they were also starting to emotionally connect with the audience.
So the concept of creating an emotional impact was pioneered by an ad exec named Rosser Reeves in 1950. Eventually, Bell Telephone ran ads with the tagline, lighting up the season for someone you love, or Barbie ads showing how Barbie can help your little girl grow up.
And then brand building started to be a thing, because
Yeah.
up until the 60s, most brands didn't really use any kind of consistent messaging or ideas across all their marketing. But in the 60s, they started to develop and establish these personalities, brand personalities.
Right.
They started out in the 50s with real people like, doctors supporting cigarette ads. We all know how that went.
Yeah, and then the agencies realized it would be much safer to create their own characters. So in 1963, McDonald's first introduced Ronald McDonald.
Introducing the world's newest, silliest, and hamburger-eatingest clown, Ronald McDonald. Ronald McDonald, the hamburger happy clown. A McDonald's drive-in restaurant is his favorite place in town.
This is what Ad Age magazine said about Ronald McDonald in 2007. He exemplifies one of the most important qualities of an effective commercial character. He doesn't sell for McDonald's. He is McDonald's.
Yeah, and that kind of personification of a brand fit into the whole new range of ad options that were springing up at the time, like TV ads that enabled the characters to come to life.
For decades, advertisers focused on targeting adults, but that all changed in the 1960s. A younger audience was starting to form its own culture and set of ideals. But most importantly, they had disposable income and influence over how their parents spent their money.
Yeah, and so advertisers were forced to get pretty creative because these kids may have had a little more money, but a lot of them were, also anti-establishment.
Smoking pot.
Yeah, anti-materialism, desperate, not to conform to societal norms.
protesting the war.
Yeah, so they, naturally they donated all their money to social causes like civil rights and the environment. Yeah, the advertisers hooked them with their own ideals.
Yeah. The Pepsi Generation campaign is a great example of focusing less on selling something and more on promoting a lifestyle and attitude. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon. There was Campbell Soup went all groovy. Coty, the big beauty products company, sold body paint with their "What Big Ideas You Have" campaign, and Yardley used Twiggy, who we love, to sell their eyelashes. The youth culture ads were a perfect example of how the original Volkswagen ad campaign worked. They liked the non-conformant, self-effacing ads.
And with the proliferation of these ads came the first ad regulations in the 60s. It's interesting, the UK was way, way ahead of the game.
Oh, yeah, way ahead.
They banned TV cigarette ads in the early 60s, and we didn't get around to it until around 1970. And, we know now about the tobacco companies' involvement in legislation and all the people they sickened and killed with their lies. But at the time, cigarettes were still advertised as, being relaxing or cool, or they showed affluence and a sophisticated lifestyle.
Yeah.
And they also, these regulations made it a lot tougher for infomercials to be full of shit.
Yeah, I remember the first time I bought a pack of cigarettes in London in like 94.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get the package and there's like a lung on it or bad teeth.
Yeah, rotten, bleeding gums.
Yeah, and here they just still have words on them.
Yeah, and I think at the time it stopped me from smoking exactly 0 cigarettes. It had no effect on me whatsoever.
0 seconds, yeah. But probably one of the most significant shifts that reflects how society was changing in the 60s was that restrictions were lifted on advertising pregnancy texting kits.
Yeah, it's cool. It was
that's a big thing. But despite all the creative advances in advertising, the 60s was just the start of the golden age of advertising, and there was still a long, long way to go.
One of the biggest things in marketing in the early days, and they still do it, is marketing sugar to kids.
Oh, yeah.
And cereal was the first one. Cereal, as we know it, originated in like 1863 when James Caleb Jackson invented granola, which was a health food for patients at a sanitarium. Right. And then the guy who actually made sanitarium cereal popular was Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. And he developed his own cereal for his own patients. And his brother, Will Keith, went on to create the first commercially successful cornflakes in 1906.
Cereal's popularity grew, especially after World War II, and it later evolved with added sugars, flavors, and child-focused marketing. Here are some of the examples of the cereal's mascots.
Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes. Great big flakes of corn sparkling with a secret sugar frosting. Either with milk or right out of the box, Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flakes are packed with energy.
They're good.
Good? They're great!
Who goes there? Toucan Sam. I seek flavors of fruit. Fruit? Follow my nose.
Fruit!
It always knows. Ahoy! Kellogg's Fruit Loop cereal with natural orange, lemon, and cherry flavors and a full day supply of vitamin C. Part of this complete breakfast. So you like Fruit Loops? I am hooked.
Do you know the name of the rooster on cornflakes?
I was just going to say, everybody remembers the rooster, but what was his name?
Cornelius.
That's right, Cornelius the rooster. And the Trix Rabbit, I think, Tricks are for kids. I think he was just the Trix Rabbit, right?
There's so many of them. And then, of course, one of our favorite, Captain Crunch, yeah?
Oh, the best cereal.
I love Captain Crunch. Oh, boy. So Rice Krispies, though, were a little different. Their mascots were these 3 gnomes named Snap, Crackle, and Pop. And that was the sound that cereal made when you put milk on it. I remember when I was a kid, I would do that just to listen to it. It was genius, really.
I know.
Just saying those words in the commercials were even more important to the marketing than those mascots.
Yeah, because we don't remember their names. No. And then,
oh yeah, they're Snap, Crackle, and Pop. That were their names.
I know, but did you remember that?
I couldn't tell you which one was which.
I hope not. I remember Count Chocula and Frankenberry.
Yeah.
Those apparently were the first ones that were ever named after the cereals themselves.
There aren't many more recognizable candies than the Hershey's Kisses. Beyond the iconic shape, Hershey made a cute animated version as a mascot, I forget her name. It was like Mrs. Kisser. She had a cute name.
Was she hot? I don't remember.
She kind of had like legs. She had legs. So that made her hot.
That's good enough for us.
But the first TV commercial for a candy bar wasn't for Kisses, but it was Hershey's Milk Chocolate Bar in 1946.
Yeah, and there's Milky Way. This is an interesting one. They never had an official mascot with a name, but they started using a cow in these print ads over 100 years ago. And I tried to find the origin of the cow, and nobody knows. It's really interesting. And also going back so far, there was a lollipop called Dum Dums, and their mascot was the Dum Dum Drum Man.
But then the legend. The design of the candy is great, but the genius behind M&M's is they created animated mascots for each color that have their own personalities. And they've been the face of M&M's since the Second World War.
Yeah, it's amazing. Over the years, Mars, which is the company that makes them, they've made these very small, subtle changes to the character, which, believe it or not, were mostly to reflect the social climate. But so, for example, Mrs. Green, who became Ms. Green, who some of us are uncomfortably attracted to,
She was hot.
supposedly. Anyway, yeah, she always wore high heels, but recently they were changed to sneakers.
Oh God! And what happened next? The right-wing social media podcasters and Fox News completely lost their shit. Apparently, some people are actually attracted to Mrs. Green, or they were.
M&M's, the candy company, has just announced that it's redesigning its cartoon characters. The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. M&M's will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous, until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them.
There was a lot less fuss over Mrs. Brown's high heels being replaced with kitten heels because she was smart, or no one cared. No one wanted to fuck her, I guess. I don't know.
That's one way to put it. Then there was the Tootsie Pop owl. Any Tootsie Pop lover knows that it's a candy lollipop, but in the center there's this little chewy bit of chocolate or Tootsie Roll. Yeah, and I always busted those things open to get to the Tootsie Roll instead of just eating a fucking Tootsie Roll.
Did you ever try and do only licks?
No.
No way.
No, that was the thing with the kid with the owl. He said he asks the boy the owl how many licks of the lollipop it takes to get to the chewy center of the Tootsie Roll.
Yep.
And there are still new ones coming out all the time, like the Sour Patch Kids or the Gummy Bear. I mean, these things have their own universe of retail, from songs to Disney movies to, which that reminds me, I don't know if she's strictly speaking a mascot, but Tinkerbell is hot.
So speaking of mascots, here's one I'll bet you didn't see coming. Chile and Mexico are way ahead of us on banning mascots for shitty food. Both countries have created standards for how shitty food can be, and it's for a wide range of ingredients, not just sugar. If it exceeds the limits, it has to have a warning on the package, and they can't have a mascot.
Yeah, in other words, if we had that law, there'd be no such thing as mascots, and everything would have warning labels on it.
Yeah, it's true. Is there a toy that your parents let you have when you were a kid that you wouldn't buy your kid today?
Let us know at Taboo Treasures on Instagram or TikTok, or you can email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com. Marketing cigarettes to kids has to be the most infamous use of advertising ever. The tobacco companies literally called children replacement smokers because they knew they were killing their customers. If you think you know how bad it was, visit tobaccofreekids.org. It's unfathomable that this sort of thing was ever allowed to exist. Here's a brief excerpt from one of their recruitment documents. This is a quote.
Younger adult smokers have been the critical factor in the growth and the decline of every major brand and company over the last 50 years. And they will continue to be just as important to brands and companies in the future. They weren't even trying to hide this shit.
No. Most famous example of direct marketing to kids is those bubblegum cigarettes, right?
I love those.
They were great. They were actually really good gum.
The gum was good. Remember, it had the powdered sugar, so you could actually take a hit. And
yeah, you could blow into the cigarette, and the powdered sugar on the end would puff out. But did those make you want to smoke?
No, I think seeing my mom's pack of Marlboro when I was a kid.
I was just going to say that. It was a combination of seeing our parents and also smoking was cool.
Yeah. Remember some of the names? Because they didn't really try to hide the packaging that was being sold to these kids.
No, they were intentionally, like Viceroy
They looked just like the cover.
Same exactly.
Packaging.
Yeah. They had such subtle differences. Like, remember Marlboro became Marlboro? They just left out the L.
I probably had those.
Yeah. And I don't remember which ones I had, but Winston's became, instead of with an O, it was a U, Winston.
Winston.
Yeah, the packaging looked exactly like the real thing.
Yeah, but by the 50s, the first health reports on the dangers of smoking were released, sending red flags to parents everywhere who basically did nothing. Eventually, there was some noise made about them, but only North Dakota banned them, and that was only from 1953 to 67. No other federal or state ban has ever been passed.
It's so weirdly random. In other words, believe it or not, you can still buy these things for your kid, and they still have packaging that's nearly identical to the real thing. What the fuck?
Cigarette mascots and merch directed at kids and even adults became a cottage industry. And here are some examples that seem surreal now, but were household names, and some still are.
Yeah, and the most famous one that was really aimed at kids was Joe Camel. And he was everywhere from 87 to 97. And, he's pretty notorious when you look back on him. He was like this slick, sunglass-wearing cartoon.
Yeah, he looked cool.
Well, that's what, apparently it worked. Yeah, he was all over everything. Ads, billboards, merchandise, Joe Camel merch. This is so hard to believe, but he was at least as well known as Mickey Mouse among 3 to 6-year-olds, and by the early 90s, more kids recognized Joe Camel than Mickey Mouse. I know. Their share of the teen market skyrocketed during the Joe Camel days, but eventually he was assassinated by public outrage and lawsuits. But again, 10 years.
Yeah. Some people may not know this or remember this, but in the 1960s, Fred Flintstone was in a TV commercial for Winston cigarettes. Wow, I love the Flintstones. I don't remember that commercial, though.
No, but
They sang jingles and smoked on screen, and they were supposedly targeted at adults, which makes sense because it wasn't a cartoon TV show that kids watched. And all in all, there were dozens of characters, cartoons, TV shows, movies, and merch tobacco tie-ins over the years aimed at children. But one really stands out.
My favorite, The Marlboro Man, which was a Philip Morris ad that ran from the 50s all the way into the 90s. And for those of you who don't remember, the Marlboro Man was a live-action person. He was a human, a rugged, the no-nonsense cowboy with 3-day growth on a horse and with a lariat. And he was everywhere. He was on billboards, sports sponsorships, and like all the factory car and boat racing, like Formula One and the offshore racing. It was everywhere.
Yeah, if you lived in L.A. or even visited, you might have remembered the world-famous 70-foot-tall mechanical Marlboro Man billboard on Sunset Strip, where he lit Marlboros and blew out real smoke for 17 years until he was finally taken down in 1999.
And even then, there was a lot of controversy over it because people hadn't really embraced the non-smoking thing to the point where they, he's a cultural thing and a piece of L.A. history, and it's really interesting. But
yeah, and it's sad. 4 out of the 5 Marlboro Men all died from cancer.
It's horrible.
In 1971, smoking ads were banned on TV and radio, but cartoons like Joe Camel didn't get axed until 1997.
And so now Big Tobacco has invested heavily in the e-cig market, partly as a way to make up for less smoking, less use of traditional tobacco products, but also just, a way to attract a whole new generation of smokers.
So when did you start smoking? You remember?
Yeah, I was embarrassingly young.
How old do you think?
I mean, I wasn't a full-time smoker, but I started at around 12. And by 14, I was an actual cigarette smoker. It's horrible.
I dabbled a bit when I was younger, but yeah, by 14, 15, yeah, I used to sneak them into school. But, we were talking about the candy cigarettes. The reason why I smoked Marlboros is because my mom did.
Yeah, I think I started smoking Marlboros because by then it was kind of cool. I think actually it might be the reason your mom smoked them, because they kind of became cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly when that happened. Maybe the Marlboro Man had something to do with that.
Maybe. She might have had a crush on the Marlboro Man. I wish she was here so I can ask her.
How long ago did you quit?
15 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, me too, around then.
Don't smoke.
No, don't smoke.
It's good. The younger generation really doesn't smoke. Unfortunately, they're fucking vaping bubblegum fucking vapors. But
yeah, and they have social media and TikTok, which is, instead of killing their lungs, they're killing their brains.
You're reaching deep inside you. Go! The things you've never known. It's been tough, rough going, but you haven't gone alone.
We do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
Be all that you can
Hey,
be.
First Sergeant. Good morning.
You can do it in the army.
the first toy guns were probably simple wooden stick things. More sophisticated versions like pop guns and rubber band guns started to show up around the mid-19th century. In the early 20s, toy guns were usually made of durable cast iron, but they shifted toward light, tin-plated steel in the 1930s, and they always reflected the stuff boys were into.
Yeah, for example, when Westerns were popular, kids wanted cap guns that looked like six-shooters, and when science fiction became a thing, it was the Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, like ray gun things. But World War II was the beginning of what we think of now as the hardcore military toys. This company called Paris Manufacturing, they equipped the military with replica rifles for training. And they kept selling them after the war as toys, along with the smaller versions for kids. If you can believe it, they're still using these same rifles for training today.
And skipping to 1964, Hasbro released G.I. Joe, who's become a media franchise that represents all branches of the armed forces. In fact, G.I. Joe coined the phrase action figure. Even with all the military-based toy guns, there's no evidence that the U.S. Army actually marketed toys during the 20th century.
Except not so fast.
Yeah.
Jerry Whitaker, an executive for an organization called U.S. Army Soldier Systems that works with the military, got an email in 2003 from Hasbro 2 days after the Iraq War began. And they wanted information on chemical protective suits. And Whitaker also said the Army's provided toy manufacturers with images of new things they were working on to kill people with. The guy said, it's kind of cool to see this stuff being fielded by G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise because the Army and Hasbro has worked together for years, and they wanted to get ahead of the curve to market them for G.I. fucking Joe. Unreal.
Yeah.
The video game industry was right there, too. The newest generations of soldiers naturally grow up playing with so many electronic toys and games that today's troops got their basic training as children. It's like all the eye-to-hand coordination. These kids are playing video games.
Yeah, some of these kids are like drone pilots in rooms,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and the sharpshooter games. Yeah, they've been training them for years.
It's wild.
Hey, it's Hasbro. Hasbro makes toys. What's new, Hasbro?
Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head with their own cars and trailers. That's what's new. You can make the funniest looking people in the whole world. Potato Head people look different every time you make them. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head with cars and trailers come in $1 and $2 sizes.
That was a clip from the first TV commercial ever for a toy in 1946. And it was Mr. Potato Head.
I had one of those.
Yeah, I did too. Did you ever eat it?
No.
By the time you get done playing with it, which, by the way, you know, this is right after World War II, and half of the world has been devastated. People are starving, and American kids are using food for toys.
And you know who sold that was Hasbro, same people that sold G.I. Joe.
That's right.
So we've talked about marketing campaigns that we felt were dangerous for children, and the ad companies knew it. Okay. Right. But now we're going to talk a little bit about stuff that became dangerous that they didn't know it. You know? Yeah, the collectible toy market is a strange one, and the prices are all over the place. But you can buy all of them but the last toy on our list on eBay all day long and other sites for next to nothing. All the easy bake ovens you want for less than $100.
Yeah, what our list lacks in value, it definitely makes up for in potential hospitalization. So before we get to the single most god-awful, rare, and expensive toy in the world, we want to give a quick mention to a few classics of child endangerment. They're all kind of head-scratchers.
Yeah, clackers. I had clackers. You have clackers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these things, they came out in the late 60s, and they're not much more than two acrylic balls connected by a piece of string. And the idea was that you just smack them together, but you might hit yourself in the fucking head, or they might shatter and send a piece of glass flying into your eyeball. It's amazing, but it took the government until 1981 to ban them, but I think you can still get them outside of the U.S.
One of the most inexplicable ones is the CSI fingerprint analysis kit. This is one of those times when a manufacturer had to actually go out of their way and add an extra step to do something horrifying. It was a Chinese company in 2007 called Planet Toys, and they cut the fingerprint powder in this little kit with thermalite, because thermalite is one of the most toxic forms of asbestos known to man. For some reason, they stopped making them in 2009, but you can still poison your kid with one from eBay.
Hasbro wasn't just busy helping the Army turn children into soldiers. The original Easy Bake Oven from the 60s burned hundreds of children, so in 200... That's unreal. So in 2007, they rebooted this classic and burned 250 more children, including 16 seriously and one who needed a partial finger amputation.
And believe it or not, that's not nearly as bad as the Snack Time Cabbage Patch doll. I mean, if anything sounded innocuous, okay, so you could feed this thing's plastic food, like plastic French fries, but it had powerful mechanical jaws that couldn't tell a plastic carrot from a finger. One kid's parents filed a $25 million lawsuit against Mattel because this terrifying thing chewed their child's hair down to the scalp, causing mental and emotional injuries.
Yeah, I kind of get creeped out by those dolls myself.
Awful.
Yeah. Anyway, Aquadots, I don't remember these. They were cute little toy beads that came out in 2007. All you had to do was put a little water on them, and they'd stick together in whatever shape Little Debbie wanted. Also, if you happen to swallow one, the coating will release the compound GHB, soon to be known to Debbie's mom as Rohypnol, the date rape drug. Bill Cosby endorsed this product.
Yeah, it only took 3 little girls falling into comas before 4.2 million kits were recalled.
Wow.
That's really not funny.
Why are we laughing?
And now on to the all-time Hall of Fame champion of the world at making toys that will cut, burn, irradiate, and or kill your child. A.C. Gilbert, founder of the Gilbert Toy Company. Gilbert made toys for little boys. In the 20s, he introduced the Gilbert glass blowing kit, which is exactly what you think it is. And in the 30s, he came out with the Gilbert caster kit.
Yeah, this is a shockingly big hot metal casting machine that came with a few dozen molds for things like soldiers and animals. So step 1, heat it up. Step 2, melt some lead. Step 3, pour the lead into a mold. Step 4, dial 911 with whatever fingers aren't covered in boiling lead.
Our last toy is Gilbert's final and most alarming contribution to playtime. And if you think it must be the worst, most dangerous thing anyone could ever imagine giving to a child, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which is a thing, by the way, agrees with you. It's the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab. And just in case you don't think it came with an actual sample of radioactive uranium, it did.
It's hard to top the image of a 10-year-old glowing in the dark while he waits for his glass-blowing kit to heat up to 1,000 degrees while he inhales the fumes of the molten lead in his Gilbert caster. And we're not going to try, but we will tell you that the most dangerous toy is also the most expensive collectible toy we could find.
The original kits were incredibly expensive. They were like $50, which is the equivalent of almost $650 in today's dollars. But in 2024, a rare example was sold by RR Auction House in Boston for $16,500. It was listed as the most dangerous toy in history. I spoke to them and they said it was complete, except for the uranium, of course. But U-238 has an atomic half-life about 4.5 billion years, so you may not be able to see it, but it's a pretty good bet that it's still there.
So there you have it, the most dangerous and expensive toy ever sold. But what about an unopened one?
What would a still-sealed Gilbert U-238 atomic energy lab be worth if it still had the uranium in it? And who would risk having it in their collection?
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Taboo Treasures. We really hope you like it. If you want to tell us about the first toy you ever had that you got hurt with.
Or if there's a toy you had as a kid that you'd never buy your own kid today, let us know at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok, or email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com.
Goodbye. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Witkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.